Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this weekly Torah learning of spreading light and love into the world. We always like to start off with giving because how we give, that's how Hashem will give to us. So let's all give generously, so Hashem will give us generously. So I'm putting some coins in the tzedakah box. We're also going to say some names for Tehillim, people that need Tehillim, and we're including everyone. For Chaya Sarah Bat Elazar, Rachel Bas Chaya Yuta, Chana Yenta Rivka Bas Shendel, Razel Bas Hadath, Rafal Chaya Meir Ben Simachasha, Yosef Ben Devor Leah, Bela Bas Chaya, Chana Leah Sarah Bat Pesha Gittel, Devorah Leah Bas Yafaliba, and all who needs. I do this class weekly in memory of my dear grandmother, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yehuda. I hope you're proud. I also do this class in memory of my dear great uncle, Chaim Dober Ben Betzalel Washansky. To save a life is saving a world, and he saved many. We are also going to be dedicating this class in merit for the Chayalim, for their safety. These are some that I know, but we're including all of the IDF. Yisrael Ephraim Ben Chayat Tzivya, Reuven Chaim Ben Nechama, Dina and Devorah Leah, Rafal Ben Devorah Leah, and all who needs an IDF that is injured and that needs complete refuah shlema, Shachar Yisrael Ben Roni, and the hostages should be released immediately in honor of Rosh Chodesh Shvat. We should hear miracles immediately. We are now going to say Tehillim, so please get your Tehillims. We're going to do Kapitel Chaf. We're going to put it on the screen as well. And we're doing this for the safety of Eretz Yisrael, the safety of all the Jews around the world, and the hostages should return immediately. Lam natseach mizmar leDavid, Yancha Adonai b'yam sarah. Yisa gevcha shem Elohei Yaakov, Yishlach ezracha mikaidesh. Umetzian yisadecha yiskar kol min chaysecha, ve'elascha yidashna stella. Yitain lacha chavavevcha, V'chol atmascha yamale. Niranana b'shuasecha ub'shem Eloheinu nidgal. Yamale, niranana, yamale niranana b'shuasecha ub'shem Eloheinu nidgal. Yamale Adonai kol mishalasecha. Ata yadaiti ki hashia Adonai mishicha yanehu. Mishmei kachai b'gvurais yesha yaminai. Ela v'arecha ve'ela v'asusim ba'anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu naskir. Hema karu v'nafalu v'anachnu kamnu v'nisaydad. Adonai Hashia hamelach yanenu v'yaim karenu. The Tzemach Tzedek said, if we only knew what Tehillim does, we would say it day and night. So please, we're allowed to say Tehillim now at night as well, because we need it, and we should just hear revealed miracles. Please don't stop saying Tehillim. So I'm now going to introduce to you give us 1 second. I'm now going to introduce to you our wonderful guest speaker. We're so excited to have Rishe Deitsch. She is a wife, a mother, a grandmother living in Crown Heights. She likes her plants, and some of them like her. She is also an editor-in-chief of the Neshei Chabad newsletter, which she considers her shluchus from the Rebbe. Whenever she needs clarity about anything, she asks herself and others, older and wiser, what would the Rebbe say? Rishe has devoted many years and a few tears to educating women about the importance of natural childbirth and nursing. We are so excited to have Rishe join us tonight. We're going to take down the picture now, and I'm going to ask a few questions. We're honoring Rishe's mom, and her mother wrote 2 books. One of them is Why I Didn't Cry When Comrade Stalin Died, and that's her mom as a young girl. And it's written by Miriam Paltiel Neville. And the second book is Zayda, Stories of Yisrael Nevler and My Childhood, by his granddaughter, Miriam Paltiel Neville. She passed away recently, and she's very much missed. And I'm very excited to hear about her tonight because she's also a relative of mine, a distant relative. Her great grandfather was my great grandmother's brother. So it's was very cool for me to read this book, and I have a lot of questions to read both books because I got to find out a lot of my family history. And I feel that it's really important to learn about history because history keeps repeating itself. And today we're at a time that we really need to hear this, how we can learn from our ancestors and our elders. So Rishi, when you were growing up, were you aware of these stories, some of them horrific, about the KGB arresting people in her family in middle of the night, of your family middle of the night? Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you learned about it? That would be incredible. I'm going to unmute you. Give me one moment.
How about now?
Now you're great. I hear you. Welcome, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks a
It's an
million.
honor and a privilege.
Thank you.
So if it's okay, we're going to do it interview style just because I have so many questions about the book today. If you need me to repeat the question, I can.
No,
but
don't.
okay,
I just want to say
fantastic.
at first that I was very nervous for the last few hours. I had a lot of stage fright, and I remembered something my sister Etty Gurevich told me. Years ago, I was standing at the stage of Holy Torah ready to go on and speak, and I was like, Etty, what if I make a complete fool of myself? She goes, so Rishe Deitsch made a fool of herself. So what? Like, Etty made me realize, what's the big deal? Who's Rishe Deitsch anyway? So if I make a fool of myself, so what? That helped me tonight also. Now, answering about my mother with her fear of the KGB and all that. As young children, we were not sure if her fears were realistic or way overblown. We weren't sure. We didn't know enough about Russia and all that. Like, we knew there was a lot of dangerous stuff. We knew communism was deadly, but we also knew that sometimes maybe she didn't quite get it. We weren't sure. But I do know that the first book that we published of hers, which is this one, has no pictures of her in it because she was afraid to be recognized. She was still afraid that the KGB was, still afraid because she had escaped Russia without permission. They didn't get visas and permission. They escaped. She was under the seat of the train because her father worked for the Russian government bank, so they would never get permission. They escaped. So she was always afraid of the KGB. There's not a single picture of her in here. This book, the second one we published after she passed away, we put pictures. We're like, where she is now, she's not afraid anymore. We could use pictures now. I know that many years ago, I remember this. We were riding in the car, and you know the Sefer Torah song, where the Sefer Torah is like lost for years in a basement, and finally somebody finds it and brings it home where it belongs to a shul. And I remember my mother was listening to that song and she was crying. She was so moved by it. And I remember thinking, these tears are not about the Sefer Torah. This is about the lost child. Like, she herself felt that she also spent years wandering, lost, not sure, here, there, where does she belong? Who is she? And she was a very lost child, and her mother passed away when she was 4 years old. And at that point, she took over. It was only her father and two brothers. There was no other woman. And this was in communist Russia. Everything was very difficult and scary and frightening and poor and hungry. So she took over the housework at the age of 5, literally. And I remember she told us this, but I didn't exactly believe her. I mean, come on, a 5-year-old, mama. I didn't believe her totally. I didn't. At the age of 19, I met my future mother-in-law. My future mother-in-law, Meryl Deitsch, told me she was there. She said to me, I remember this little girl. All the mothers are doing laundry by the river, and there's a little girl doing laundry. She reminded me. And she also remembered that, like, if my mother didn't hang it up exactly right. And she told me, my mother-in-law said to me, now I say, why didn't we tell her, Mama, like, go play, we'll do your laundry? Like, my mother-in-law felt bad that they let this little girl do laundry next to all the adults. So actually, what my mother told me, that she took over the housework at age 5, it was true. Should I tell
Wow.
you?
And that's so like not believable. So it makes sense you didn't believe it because a 5-year-old, how can they take over a house?
It didn't sound doable. It didn't sound possible, but it was actually true. And my mother when she was 4, well, her mother was taken away in an ambulance, And then at another point, a few weeks later, she was playing in the yard of her building, and one of the boys in the sandbox said to her, "You're an orphan." And she's like, "Nuh-uh, my mother's in the hospital. When she gets better, she's going to come home." And the guy said, "Nuh-uh, my mother told me you're an orphan." And my mother said to her, thought to herself, maybe that's why the mom is not coming home. Maybe I really am an orphan. And she lived on the 7th floor. She walked up to the 8th floor and down one. That was her way of finding her home. And she up to the 8th floor and down one. She went into her apartment. She found her mother's pocketbook, which I happen to have. This is it. She found her mother's pocketbook. She went under the table, under the tablecloth, and she just rocked with that pocketbook. And that was like her goodbye to her mother. And after she died, we were looking through her things, and we found this, and has actually Russian papers in it with Russian writing. This is the pocketbook from her mother. And she never was told that her mother died, because in Europe, not only in Europe, all over the world, in the 1930s, nobody told kids anything. Nowadays, when something happens, what do? We sit the children down, we explain it to them, we ask if they have any questions. Nobody did that in the 1930s. The kids were not, I don't know, I can't explain it. That's just how it was. So nobody ever told her that her mother had died. She had to figure it out. And over the years, she kept thinking, maybe actually she'll come back. She still wasn't sure.
Wow. Okay. So do you feel that you learned more about your mother doing editing of these books? Like, she told you a lot, but do you feel like from editing books, speaking to people, you had more insight into her life?
Well, first of all, it was a very difficult process editing my mother's books, because she was afraid, like I said, of the KGB. She was afraid of the communists. I mean, this is a woman who, as a child, she watched her grandfather being dragged away by police in the middle of the night. And she saw these horrific scenes. She saw her father. She woke up one night at like 3 a.m. She doesn't know what time it was. She woke up one night in the middle of the night, and she saw, of course, they lived all in one room, because that's communism. Everybody's very poor. And she opened one eye, and she saw the way her father goes into the one closet, all the way to the back of the closet, digs down, takes out a mezuzah, walks to their door of their one room, puts on his gartel, puts on the mezuzah, says the bracha, stands there like this for a few seconds, and takes it down and puts it back in the closet. Because to have the mezuzah up on the door all the time, he'll get arrested. And his 3 orphans would put in an orphanage. So that was she this is how she grew up. So obviously she was traumatized and scared. So that's why the editing was difficult, because she kept wanting to make things up and fictionalize, and I kept wanting it to be true. Ma, let's tell it how it really happened. No, let's just make up. No, let's not make anything up, Ma. Let's not do that. I mean, when my uncle Abba, my mother's brother, my dear uncle Abba Zol Gesund sein, when my uncle Abba was a little boy, and his older brother Laser was a little boy, after they would finish school, communist public school, they would go to my Zayda's office in the bank, and they would lean over to him, and they would pretend they're talking, and that was their mincha. They had to pretend they were having a conversation. They couldn't admit they were having mincha. That would get them all arrested. So, I threatened my mother, and I manipulated her to make sure, to the best of my ability, that the stories are true. I checked with my uncles if I could, and with other people. And I hope, to the best of my knowledge and her knowledge, that the stories are really the way it was.
Wow. Okay. What is your most compelling story from these 2 books by your mother?
Well, the most compelling one really is what I told you about, the ambulance with the sandbox with the pocketbook. But well, first of all, this is I don't know. Can you see this? My mother with her mother. You can see it. This is with her mother with her older brother. So till she was 4 years old, she was loved. She had a mother's love. She had it, and then after that, she just didn't. But one of the best stories, the one that you told me is your favorite, is the one about the way when her parents. Let's look at it. When her father's parents, Zayda Eliezer and Babi Rachel Paltiel, lived in a village called Judelovo. And this Paltiel, this Zayda Eliezer, he had a wood cutting business. So they had a lot of wood. Now, they were not wealthy, but they had a lot of happiness. They used to sing the good. They had I think 5 sons. Yeah. and they used to sing the good on Friday night, and like they were happy. And because they had all the wood, they were thinking to build on another room to their house, which in those days would be like a big luxury, not to all be in one room. And Zayda Eliezer sent a letter to the Rebbe Rashab asking if he should do it. The Rebbe Rashab said yes. So they started building the room. At that point, the head of the Duma, a wicked man named Ivan Stepanovich, decided he didn't like the Zayda Eliezer. He didn't like them singing their songs Friday night. He just couldn't stand them. And he made a new rule that if you want to build on a room, you have a permit. And if you don't have a permit, you get arrested. And he came to the Zayda's house and he's like, you don't have a permit, you're going to get arrested. I mean, the Zayda Eliezer was terrified, of course, and he wrote a letter to the Rebbe Rashab again asking what he should do. The Rebbe Rashab said, keep on building. Don't worry about this Judolov, what's his name again? Stepanovich. Don't worry about Stepanovich. And Stepanovich was threatening him, and well, everybody knew that he had just made this rule about the permit to hurt the Jew. Everybody knew that, but there was nothing they could do. And at one point, there was a little girl, Manya. One of the daughters, Manya, was like hanging out at the train station because trains had just been invented. So people would go to this train station to watch trains come and go because it was very exciting, you know. And you don't know because you're too young. But like, I'll tell you, in the 60s, 1960s, we used to take a trip to the airport to watch planes land and take off because that was a big deal for us. In those days, in the 1930s, or actually the 20s, people used to go watch trains come and, you know, land, come and go. And this Manya went to the train station and she witnessed the way this Stepanovich was waiting for the train, and then the train came, and then he waited to just hop on at the last second, and he got taken under the train and he got killed. And this Manya came running home to tell Erez Meneta, he's gone, he's dead. The guy that was trying to kill you is gone. And at his funeral, his wife, where is it? At his funeral, his wife was saying, I told you not to start up with the Jews. I told you not to start up with the Jews. This can only end badly when you start up with the Jews. And that's one of my favorite stories, and I know yours also, Chaya.
It is my favorite because it's so appropriate today. Like, just remember, you know, people are trying to intimidate us, and don't worry about it. Like, we just have to keep strong, and God will take care of the rest. And he did with this man. It was so like practical, and it was so like real how the story was. Like, he literally like was tormenting your grandfather, and your grandfather was afraid, and the Rebbe Rashab really told him, like, yeah,
it's not
keep building. And of course, the Chassid listens to the Rebbe, and he listened, and he got to see it with his own eyes. Like, it's incredible. She witnessed him, like, it was so unreal, like, it's so not like believable, the story,
yeah,
how it went down. So it's really incredible. So did working on this book impact your relationship with your grandmother, who you're named after, your mother's mother, who passed away when she was only 5 years old? If you could tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm sure you learned so much.
Obviously, I never met her because I'm named after her. And my mother only knew her till she was 4.5 when her mother died. So that's why I have a lot of things that I want to do when Mashiach comes. For example, I saved a hard copy of all the magazines since Gimel Tammuz because I want to give them to the Rebbe. And I have like a bunch of things that I plan to do when Mashiach comes. I have like a lineup on my shelf. And one of the things I really look forward to doing is getting to know her. I've never met her. I've heard about her, and I knew her sister, Moshe Zalmanov. So we always tell ourselves she was like Moshe Zalmanov, but that's something that's waiting for when Mashiach comes.
Wow. And did your mom like share memories about her?
She shared everything she remembers, but till 4 years old, how much do you remember? I mean, she remembers being fed, like spoon fed by her mother. And like she remembers being held, and she has that picture of herself being held. How much can you remember at age 4? Not so much.
Right. But it's yeah. Okay. Well, on page 84 in your mom's book, it says that she received as an inheritance from her Zayda, Rabbi Yisrael Nevler, and the Baba Chana, the mandate to be kind to your fellow Jews. whether they deserve or don't. This is your job as Jews. What did you receive as an inheritance from your
Mother.
yeah
Thank you. I thought about that a lot, actually. What I received from my mother, a few things. First of all, my mother taught us the concept of it's a kapara. You heard of that one? It's a
yeah
kapara.
could
Like we were once sitting in my dining room, okay, and all of a sudden there's water pouring out of the chandelier. Like there's water, there's a leak somewhere upstairs. There's water pouring. It could be, it turned out it could be from the attic, like literally the wall. And as I'm sitting there and the water's pouring, I'm like, my mother's words, it's a kapara. We're all healthy, right? We're alive, we're healthy, we're well. Your good angel, Rishi, your good angel went to Hashem and said, I know you have something, a gezerah on Rishi. Take it out on the ceiling. Take it out on the house. Leave her and her family alone. So the Abish was like, okay, it'll be a kapara. So that's why we had the flood, you know? My mother taught us to look upon things like that as a kapara. You got lost for an hour, it's a kapara. Thank God you're well, everybody's fine. So see it as a kapara. My mother taught us that throughout my life. The other thing my mother taught us, I think there were three. I mean, I had to summarize the three. The second one is that Ebster bleibt nicht kein Baal chayv. You heard that one? Hashem doesn't remain in debt. Basically, every time, if I would do something good, my mother would see me doing something good. She would say, like, don't worry. Hashem sees it. He's writing it down. You're going to get repaid for this, whatever the thing was. That was something else I learned from my mom. And the third thing is like, it's a little embarrassing, but when I was a little girl, my mother convinced me that I was funny and I was talented and I was pretty. Three things. She just convinced me. She just told me that I was those things. And she convinced me to such an extent that, like, I remember when I came to Beis Rivka at age 14, there was a piano in the lunchroom. And I, of course, my mother had told me how talented I am, right? So I, of course, sat down and was banging away on the piano. Like, it took me a few years to realize other girls play better than you, Rishi. But I guess their mothers didn't tell them that they do. I don't know. Because my mother told me that I'm funny and I'm talented and all that, I just believed her. She gave me a tremendous amount of self-confidence, earned or not earned. And it taught me that look how powerful we are. We literally give children their self-image. We give it to them. What we tell them is what they believe. And I wanted to show you a picture. Speaking of that, can you see this? This is my mother and me and my daughter Chanel. My mother was at her 8th grade graduation. Of course, my mother was giving her that same self-confidence that she gave me. And then many, many years later, actually the last 10 years of my mother's life, she lived in Chanel's house. Chanel had an upstairs apartment that my mother rented from Chanel. They lived together. And it was a tremendous, tremendous gift to my mother not to be living alone, to be living with Chanel, with the children, with Mati. So it all turned out very beautifully that my mother gave me and my daughters and my children this wonderful self-image. She made us feel like good, and then we were able to make her feel good. I hope in some ways at many times.
wow, it's incredible that she has had that opportunity to have her with her.
It's incredible that Chanel and Mati took the opportunity. A lot of grandchildren wouldn't do it. My mother wasn't that simple to live with, you know. And Mati and Chanel for 10 years, they did it with so much love and patience and excitement, and they were happy to do it, and it was wonderful.
Wow, that is wonderful. I'm excited to hear more about your mom in the class. So I have a few more questions, but in this book, Zayda, your great grandfather, he was a big chassid. And if we can describe his character a little bit, because even in the dark times, he was really, really funny. And I told you, I'm like, I didn't read the whole book, but I didn't get to the whole book. And I'm like, yeah, it was a little funny. And you're like, funny? Because it was like dark times. I'm like, yeah, the story with him in yeshiva on the goat. And you were like, oh, so could you share it? Because I feel like even in hard times, we have to like share humor. Like now is a hard time in life, but we still have to like live, and like we have to live for the hostages. We have to breathe for the hostages. We have to do whatever we can, but we also have to be besimcha and joyful. And it seems that your great grandfather was a very happy, like, kind of person, and it shows in the story. So if you could share it, because I thought it was fantastic.
I'm not really sure if he was naturally happy or if it was an avodah for him. I'm not sure, because
Okay.
he had a lot of children. He buried most of them. Most of them died young. I mean, he had a really difficult life. He was arrested by the KGB. He was opening chadarim. He was breaking the law every single day because the Frierdiker Rebbe said to do it with Mesiras Nefesh. So he did. So I don't know if his simcha was, I think, was somewhat of an avoida, but he managed it. What happened was when he was a bacher, this is the most famous story about him. When he was a bacher, he gave a goat mashke to drink, and the goat became very funny. Was dancing around, and basically the goat was drunk. And when the Rosh Hashiva, I don't remember who the Rosh Hashiva was at that time, but when he heard or when he about this or saw it, he expelled him from yeshiva for doing this prank. He's supposed to be learning, not playing with goats. And he's supposed to go home to his parents. Instead of going home, he went and stayed in like a rooming house. And after a few days or weeks, the rooming house sent the yeshiva the bill. And the Rosh Hashiva called him and said, "What did you do? I told you to go home." He's like, "Look, if I would have gone home, if I would have died I'm not going home. So I would have died of hunger on the street. Then you would have had to pay to ship my body home, levaya, coffin. Would have cost you more than to pay the rooming house." So they took him back into yeshiva. That's the famous story. He was also known as the Zayda of orphans. There were many, many orphans in communist Russia, many children who didn't know if the father was alive or not, because the communists liked to take people away and not tell their family what they did with them. They just like to just take them away. You would never see the person again. You wouldn't know if they were alive or dead. So there were many children like that. And Simchas Torah in Shul, Zaydi Yisrael Nevler used to take one after the other these orphans on his shoulders to dance, because who was going to take them on their shoulders? They had no fathers. And the Frierdiker Rebbe it was known, it was on Simchas Torah, they were dancing, and the Frierdiker Rebbe put his hand on Yisrael Nevler's shoulder and said, "Du bist azun zu mir, you are a son to me." He had no sons, only 3 daughters. He said that to Yisrael Nevler.
Wow. Could you tell us, if it's okay with you, the story of, because I found it so fascinating. It really described your grandfather's character of really, really understanding and really giving people benefit of the doubt. But the story of that girl who came to warn your grandfather about a master, someone that like told on him. She went from door to door, and he couldn't grasp that a friend would tell on him. Because in those days it was, I mean, if you could tell us a little bit about that, like what it was like. But someone was caught, and this girl really, most people mocked her and said, "Why did you take my husbands away from us?" Like they were very angry at her, but really she saved so many people's lives. So if you could tell us the story, that would be incredible to share.
I'm not reading it right now, so I can't tell you exactly, but basically what happened was this Jewish girl, and I actually, my mother knew her name, and I knew her name, but right now I can't remember it. She's a real person living in Crown Heights, if she's alive. This girl was in the government office, and she overheard, or she saw the way they were planning to arrest a list of people, and she got the list of names. And after work was over, she went from door to door, warning them all to leave because they were going to be arrested. And when she got to Yisrael Nevler's house, she said to Yisrael Nevler, "Your friend," and she said the guy's name, "your friend mastered on you that you are doing shchita, bris milah, yeshiva, you're doing all the wrong things. And your friend told on you, and you're about to get arrested." And Yisrael Nevler, because he was not capable, we're not capable of doing anything. We're not capable of believing that someone else would do anything we're not capable of doing, for the good or the bad. If you wouldn't give away $1 million, you don't believe someone else would. And if you couldn't murder someone in cold blood, you don't believe someone else could. That's just the way we're built. So Yisrael Nevler, who was not capable of mastering, of snitching on someone else, even under torture, could not believe that his friend, he said, we sat together on one bench, we learned together. He wouldn't tell on me, but he did, because, and you know what? I don't know what I would do if I was being tortured by the KGB. Maybe I would also, but this guy did, he was, he gave in. Maybe his family was starving. This was his way of getting, I don't want to, I don't know. But Yisrael Nevler did not believe that his friend had snitched on him. And that's why he was arrested. Didn't get arrested because he didn't run. Is that the story you're looking for?
Yeah, it was a really, I thought it was a very unique story. And your grandfather in jail, someone asked his name, Yisrael Nevler, which his name was, if you could share his full name, his last name. In those days, they had like, they had nicknames.
Oh, I don't remember.
Israel, his last name was Levin.
Yeah, Israel Levin. But they used to
Yeah,
go by his father's name, like I can't remember.
right. But they call him Israel Nevler because he was
Neville.
right. That's how it was. And the reason why I know the name I said in the beginning, he was my great grandmother, Itahenya Fain's brother.
Yeah.
And she spoke. I was told by like people. I always heard my grandmother always referencing Yisrael Nevler. She was very proud that that was her uncle.
Oh,
So Riva Minkowitz. Um, so if there's any more stories you want to share from the book, totally feel free. We have a couple more minutes, and before we go with the final, like,
I would say that one of the important lessons from my mother's books are things are not as they appear. Look deeper. Talk to people who have actually experienced it before deciding that something is beautiful or something is terrible. 3 examples of things that have beautiful mission statements, but that's where it ends because actually they're evil, are the UN, United Nations. What a beautiful mission statement. The Red Cross, they have not visited a single hostage. And communism also. It has a beautiful mission statement. Everybody gets what they need and everybody gives what they can. But actually, would you go to work if you had to just give all the money to the government to give out evenly? And nobody, it doesn't actually work. So the UN, the Red Cross, communism, like it just shocks me that there are intelligent and good and well-read people who still think these are good ideas or they have their upside. They don't. They're evil. That's what I want to share. And I mean, should I continue? Okay, when my mother was a young girl, when she was in her 20s, she had Yechidus with the Rebbe with her 2 brothers. And she had a very hard time in life. She was very traumatized. She was damaged by her childhood. She was damaged. And it was difficult for her to lead a regular life. Things that would be easy for someone else, for her, were difficult. And she went into the Yechidus and she told the Rebbe how difficult things are and how hard and how terrible. And the Rebbe answered her in Aramaic, Kol mada avid rachmana latav avid. So my mother said, huh? So then the Rebbe said it in Yiddish. Als was der Eibishter tut, los doch us zum Gutens. So my mother said, wer sagt das? Like, who says so? I don't see it. The Rebbe was saying, everything that Hashem does is for the good. And my mother didn't see the good. How could it be? How could communism have been for the good, really? She said, wer sagt das? Who says so? And the Rebbe smiled and he said, ich sag, I say so. And I have to tell you, my mother wrote those words on a piece of paper and she kept them in her apron pocket all her life. I mean, as soon as the paper got torn or dirty, she'd write it again. So she always had in her apron pocket a paper that said, Als was der Eibishter tut, lasst doch uns zum Gutens. And for me, it's helpful that I also sometimes don't see it because I'm just a lowly human being whose intellect is not even relative to the Eibishter's. And therefore, I just rely on Ich sag. The Rebbe sees it. If he sees it, if he says it's true enough for me. I don't have to see it. And after a parent dies, when our parents are alive, kibbud avim is very obvious what we have to do. We have to cook for them, visit them, help them out, make them feel good. It's so obvious. But after a person passes away, then you have to find new definitions of kibbud. So, well, first of all, publishing this second book for my mother, that was kibbud, because she wasn't alive anymore to say, Rishe, I want the book published. She wasn't alive to call me and email me. It got done, Baruch Hashem, with a lot of help from her grandchildren and everybody. So that was kibbud. Doing this interview now is kibbud. Doing it for my mom. And visiting her brother, my dear Uncle Abba and my Aunt Rechi, that's kibbud. And mainly, the main thing that I want to do for kibbud is when I would visit my mother, it was never the wrong time. I never came too early and I never could stay too long. The warmest welcome, and I could never overstay. She always made me, and I want to try to do that for a few people too. Like that's what she gave me, I hope to give other people. That's my hope. That's my kibbud now. She doesn't need me to cook for her anymore.
wow, that's so beautiful. So you even feel like you can honor your mom, like by doing kibbud avim, even in her afterlife, in ways that she would appreciate what you do for her. And it says that.
Sorry.
No, say what you were going to say.
I was going to say by visiting her brother. She does have one brother and he lives on my block. I'm lucky with that. I used to have to walk right past his house because I was rushing to my parents. But now that Hashem is taking care of them better than I ever could, I can actually walk into my uncle and my aunt's house, which is so beautiful for me.
So
And
I
they're
had
so
the pl
close
I
to
had the
my mom.
pleasure I had the pleasure of meeting your uncle a few times. I went to interview him and speak to him on, I just felt like he was a very wise man, and I'm very happy that I did. Unfortunately, I didn't record him. It was a few years back, but he told me something very wise. And I think that you'll like what he told me, so I hope it's okay that I'm sharing it with you.
Sure.
I went to interview him about my great grandmother Itehen Yachin, which is his grandfather's sister. And he said to me, I don't know a lot because I was a young boy when my mom died, and I had a lot of disappointments with death in my life. My grandfather died, I guess Yisrael Nevler. He really wanted to learn Torah with him. But he said, I see her in your eyes. She's alive. She's living through you. And that was so incredible that, like, here I am, someone he never met, but he recognized me, like, from my DNA, what I look like. And he's like, you look so much like her. And I really took that to heart, what he said to me. And I was like, wow. And now you're saying, like, oh, I can honor my mother. And yeah, it's just by being you, like living in her footsteps, filling her shoes. Like, she had big shoes to fill. And she had so many life lessons. I love what you said about a kapara. Could you tell us a little bit more about a kapara, like what it is, explain it for our viewers?
To the best of my knowledge, the way my mother taught it to me is that there's a gezerah on you up high, and your good angel goes to Hashem and says, I understand you want to do something to her. Take it out on her car. Take it out on her house. Take it out on that. Let the window break. Let her lose a shoe when she needs to. She can't find her other shoe. It's a kapara. To look at these inconvenient pain, these annoying things, but thank God we have our health, as kaparas helps to tolerate them. I wanted to show you the Neshech Chabad newsletters. Should I do that?
Yeah, but before you do, I just want to say about the kapara. I actually went to my dad and I was like, tell me the truth. Is a kapara real? Like, everyone makes things up. Like, this is a skula, like this is a merit for you. It's when someone says Zolzaina kapara, is that a real thing? My father looked at me and he's like, yes.
Okay,
So I was happy that you brought it up because, when something doesn't go your way one day, I'm talking to everyone and myself, obviously, just know that, like, maybe something worse was supposed to happen. Not maybe, for sure. And
yeah,
the merits of every mitzvah that you do really saves you from gezeras, like bad things from happening. So every time you leave your house and you put out a coin in tzedakah, that's direct protection. So do it. It's so easy. One coin a day. So I want to ask you, if it's okay, to bring this up. I actually asked you if you could prepare this. You are chief and editor of the Nishay Chabad newsletter. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because you interview so many people. And growing up, I used to see the newsletter on my mom's coffee table. I can't say that I was into it then, but now I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the articles.
thank you.
And you really put your heart and soul into interviewing people, very unique. So if you can tell us a little bit about how you got into it and why you do it and how it changed your life.
Well, I mean, the Neshech Chabad newsletter began in 1962 when I was 3 years old. Right, nothing to do with the founding of it. No, it was just a few papers stapled together, and then slowly but surely it became like this 100-page, this glossy magazine with pictures and everything's beautiful. It took a long time. It happened gradually. I will say we are the only Orthodox women's magazine with pictures of women. For example, we have this one. Can you see that? And we have this one. I don't know. Could you see this? And we have this one. And we have this one. This was our most recent magazine. We took this because of the war. Basically, I mean, just because we have pictures of women, sometimes people say to me, oh, you should only have pictures of women. I'm like, that's just as, I'm not a feminist, but I'm also not anti-male. Like, sometimes you have pictures of men too. I'm not anti. I just think that it's nice that there's at least one publication that has pictures of women in it. And the reason why we do that and other magazines don't is because our Rebbe was different. He was very different than other Gedolim, very different. Do you know that the other Rebbes don't have Yechidus with women? They do not. They don't have, the fact that the Rebbe stood online talking to women, giving them dollars and could trace him, this was made very, very unusual. He had a very deep respect for women, and the Rebbe verbalized it constantly. And as a matter of fact, this is my favorite sikha of the Rebbe. I mean, there are thousands and thousands, and I don't even know them all. I definitely don't. But my favorite one is still called "A Drop in Status." It's actually it's on our website, shechabadnewsletter.com. And it's where the Rebbe says that there was a march in Washington, feminists, women's liberation. They were marching. What are they marching? They're celebrating that now they're just like men. And the Rebbe is saying, why would you want a drop in status? Why would you celebrate a drop? You have such a high status, you women. You create the home. You make the place where everyone goes to unwind and to be their real self. And you strengthen people to go out and conquer the world. And the Rebbe told women everything that they do. And he said, why would you want to drop in status and be like a man who just goes out and does stuff outside the house? You're where the real power is. So I like publishing things like that can change lives. And I basically try to, like, if I don't know what to do, if I don't know if I should publish or don't publish, or I just say, what would the Rebbe say to do? And sometimes the answer comes to me immediately. It's obvious. And sometimes I have to ask people that are older and wiser. But that's my goal, to publish things that the Rebbe would want me to publish, to be able to proudly hand him this issue. And sometimes I'm like, if we take this ad, I cannot hand it to the Rebbe. No, we can't take that ad. We need the money, but we can't take it. Because that's my goal. I'm doing it for him. It's not the Rishe Deitsch newsletter, it's the Rishe Chabad. The Rebbe's name is on it. And it has to reflect him and his views, not mine.
Wow. And when I asked you about your mom, you said that she loved to write. Well, we know that because she wrote her book, and she wrote 2 books, which is so exciting. And I'm really just telling you to get it because I enjoyed it so much. They're short stories, such an easy reads, and it really delves into the real history of the Soviet Union, and it expands so much more on the stories that we mentioned. Just went through so many things, and maybe we'll discuss it a little later in the Farbrengen that we're going to have. But what the what the Jewish people had to go through, like our ancestors, it's unheard of. We wouldn't be able to do it. They had so much, like they were so connected to God, and they had such mysterious nefesh, and they did everything in secret. Like you said, your grandfather literally took out the mezuzah from the back of the closet, put it on the door, and many children didn't see their parents doing that because the parents were afraid, like we heard in the other classes, for the children to maybe repeat, because children do repeat what they see at home. And they tell you everything. I know that I'm a preschool teacher. Like I I
You know
I
everything.
I know a lot. But the cutest little things, even 2-year-olds come in school and tell me things, and I just crack up, and I ask the moms, I'm like, is that true? And they're like, oh Lordy, it is true. Um, so they had to be so careful, like what they show their children, and they really had to, like, and it's amazing that your mom was such a wise little girl. Like, she was 5 years old. I mean, it took her time to realize that her mom wasn't coming home. What does a 5-year-old know? But she also knew that she had to be quiet, and she knew, like, she didn't talk. She did everything quietly, and she ran her house. And one of the lessons that I learned, and I asked if we could expand on it, is that she was by the river doing laundry, and those women, I guess, were in their own pain. They were just trying to survive themselves, so we really can't judge them, but we can learn from this story. When you see a little girl by herself, I mean, any orphan or anyone needs help, like, we shouldn't ask them if they need help. We should reach out. We should just do it. We should just make it happen. So it's incredible that your mother-in-law, like, so many years later, like, reflected on this story, and she's like, she felt really bad about it, because at the time it was just like, it made sense. It was such a crazy time that, like, no one had time to think, you know.
Right.
And
Also, I think my mother-in-law, and that's what she told me. My mother-in-law lost 2 daughters. Alta Schwartz and Rachel Schusterman. One left behind 7 children, one left behind 11 children. So that's 18 orphans right there that she had grandchildren. And she said, now I'm more tuned into orphans. Now I understand their lives a little better, and I feel bad that I didn't make your mother's life a little easier. Like, she went through her own losses, which made her But as you're saying, we can all come to that place of awareness and sensitivity without having losses to orphans.
Right, we can learn from these stories. Did your mom ever like talk to you about it, like what it was like for her as a little girl, that no one was really there for her?
She did talk about it, but like I told you, I wasn't sure that she had it right. Like I couldn't imagine she was really doing the housework as a 5-year-old. I didn't think she had that right, but actually she was. And like later, her brothers told me that they felt bad. Her brothers felt bad that when she would cook. I mean, how is a 5-year-old supposed to cook? The food didn't taste good. It was just very plain. She didn't know how to make it good. She would just like throw in the pot, like trying to make it, and they would like yell at her that they didn't like the food. And they felt bad. They felt bad later that they did that.
And they
And
were older than her or younger than her?
older. No, no, she was in the middle. One older, one younger. Aber soll gesund sein is younger. And they felt bad that they didn't, when she was washing the floor and she would say, move your feet, they wouldn't move their feet. Like they felt badly. They tortured her, like brothers do. But she was just trying to do the mommy housework.
Wow. And like, did she resent that at all?
I think she did. I think she felt bad, but she could not. That was, she just
Right.
accepted whatever she got, she accepted that's her lot in life.
She was almost like a old soul at 5 years old. Like she knew it had to get done.
And she was forced into that, unfortunately.
There was a beautiful story. How could you just share about the family photo that your grandfather made sure that everyone looked beautiful? Like he put on a bow on them. It said in the book, he dressed them up. Could you tell us that real fast?
And that's it. You just told it. And then they went to her office. My grandmother Risha, my mother's mother, had been a photo retoucher. That was her job. She would retouch. She would take photos of people and then retouch them. Photoshop, what we call it now, Photoshop. But then it was done with paint and a little brush, and to make them more beautiful. So when they went, her father took the three of them to take a picture. And when they went there, again, she thought maybe her mother will be there because she had never been told that she was dead, but she wasn't there. And then I'm sorry, I don't remember the rest of this. Just that they took the picture.
Yeah, they took the picture and he dressed them up so beautiful, and it was so impactful for your mom
Right.
that they
They
that they did that.
had these kind of bows on their necks. But this here she's alive. But this is what you did when you took a picture in the 1930s. You tied these things around your neck.
And that was beautiful. And it was so sweet of your father. Like her father, he really tried his best. Like he tried.
He did, and he was a hero because he was fighting Stalin and fighting communism and trying to stay alive and trying to keep his children alive. I mean, my mother, one of the big, I don't know if I can call it a tragedy. One of the big challenges of her childhood was that she was very smart and she wanted to learn. But my Zayda, her father, Dovber, kept pushing her back to kindergarten, back to kindergarten. Why? In kindergarten, you got food, free food. He didn't have food. They were very poor, very hungry. So he kept putting her back to kindergarten so that she would get the free meals. She wanted so badly to go to first grade, second grade, third grade. Nope, back to now, I totally understand him. He wanted his child to eat. And I totally understand her. She wanted to get promoted. Like that was one of the big challenges of her life. She hated that.
But she also didn't understand your father then, because
Her father.
she was, yeah, her father, like because she was young. But now after, she was probably so thankful to him that she survived because of him.
I don't know. She really always wanted to. She always wanted more schooling. Like she always craved it. And then she came to America and like she learned English and went to high school and graduated all in a year and a half and got top honors in her class. Like she was really hungry for education, for learning. She appreciated that.
Wow, that's incredible. Um, Someone asked a question. I'm just asking her to ask again. So, is there anything else that you want to add before we conclude with a beautiful video of your mom singing? I'm just gonna say it's Kol Isha, so that means that this video is just for women. So, like the singing, um, it's beautiful. So, if there's anyone tuning in that sometimes people tune in after that are men, please for the next 4 minutes, like close the screen because we want to respect her mom's that's her mom's standard. She didn't sing in front of men that were in her family. And so I'm just going to say it, like, just please don't listen to it. I would really appreciate that because I don't think your mother would appreciate it going out there, but I know she would appreciate going out to us women. So we're they're going to ask one more question. Did your grandfather ever speak about your mom? Oh, that's a good question. Did your grandfather, Yisrael Nevler, ever share about your mother to you after her passing?
I never met him. I never met my great grandfather Yisrael Nevler. I never met him. I think he died in Russia. I mean, I definitely never met him.
You never met him. And did any of your like any of your aunts or uncles tell you about, like, not you, like later on, did you meet any of them? Did they tell your mom about him, about her?
Okay, so there was one person, Musia Zalmanov. Musia Zalmanov was my mother's mother, Rishe's sister. We were close with her. She was the only person that we could, and you know what? Musia was really nice to my mother when she was a child. She was my mother was in an orphanage briefly with her brother. Musia came and visited. She tried. She really tried. She was good.
Right. So you have someone that like gave you some information about your mom.
Unfortunately,
not enough.
She passed away. Musia, she died young. I mean, too young. She died maybe, I think it was like something like 30 years ago. Till then, we had her.
Wow. Thank you for sharing about the Rishe newsletter. I just want to say, if anyone wants to get it, it's so easy. You just go to rishechabadnewsletter.com and subscribe. It's really not expensive, and they're really like fantastic. So I really recommend. You could reach out to me directly if you want the link after. We're going to share now a video of your mom singing. It was so special. So give us a moment while we pull it up.
Affenbrek von Städtele steht vertracht der Heisele. Dorten auf den beiden Stiebel lebt mein lieber Rischele. Jeden Abend fahren Heisel, dreh sich herum. Gib a Pfeif und ruf es Rischele. Komm, komm, komm. Öffnet sich ein Fenster und scheint auf die alte Heisele. Und von beidem Stiebel hört sich Asis Kolschret Rischele. Noch a Weile wart mein Lieber, bald will ihr sein frei. Geh sich noch einmal rüber, 1, 2, 3. Geh ich mir a freilicher und ich knack mir Nieselach. Her ich auf die Trepplach springen, ihre drobne Fieselach. Schön a Rob von letzten Treppel, nehm sie lieber rum. Gib ich ihr a Pusch in Käppel, komm, komm, komm. Will dir beten, Berle, als du sonst nicht pfeifen mehr. Hörst, pfeift schon, sag die Bobbe, sie ist frum, verdrießt ihr sehr. Pfeifen, sagt die, ist nicht Yiddish, passt doch nur versehen. Gib a Zeichen, Prost auf Yiddish, 1, 2, 3. Wel voor ons niet pfeifen mehr, drauf gib ich a Schwulle. Ey, du willst wel ich sein frumig, zu lieb dir mein Snuelle. Jeden Abend gehen in Schule, lernen will ich fleißig. Erst die Bobbe ruft schön Rischel, komm, komm, komm. Denk dir lieber, Berle, als du wirst nicht pfeifen mehr, strick ich dir at vielen Säckel mit am Morgen da wie du. Als gefällt wird in Schul, sagen sollst du sehen, das hat gestrickt mein lieber Rischele, komm, komm, komm. Geh ich mir a freilicher und ich knack mir Nieselach. Her ich auf die Trepplach springen, ihre drobne Fieselach. alte Heisel wieder ist als stumm. Komm zu mir in Cholem Rischele, komm, komm,
Wow. That was incredible. So for those of us that don't understand Yiddish, if you can just like
Recap
give us a little,
what the song is.
yeah.
This is a song that my mother learned as a child in Russia. I don't know if she learned it from her mother or her baba, Kana, I don't know. But I remember hearing it from the time I was born. Basically, the story is, and of course, she would stick in the name of whichever kid, like here it's Rishe, because I was playing the piano. Whoever's in front of her get their name in the song, you know. Basically, there's a baba, and she's a tsnua. She's a very tzniistic, and she says to her son, please don't. Pfeifen is not Yiddish. Whistling is not Jewish. Es passt doch nur für sie. It's good. It's only good for them. Gibat zeichen prostat Yiddish. We're Yidden, we don't whistle for someone. We call them in Yiddish. And she's talking about how they ran up and down the steps and they were knocking nislach. They were what's it called? Opening nuts, cracking nuts with their teeth, and how happy they were, and how she said to her either son or grandson, I'm not sure, she said, if you're not going to whistle anymore, and thank you so much for that, and I'm gonna make you a tefillin zekel. I'm gonna embroider for you a beautiful tefillin zekel, and when you take it to shul, you can tell all your friends that I made it for you. And then the story, the way the song ends is that it says that the house, with all that happiness, the house is quiet now. Many years have gone by. Everyone is gone. Kum zu mir in cholem. Come to me in a dream, she says. She's talking to the people that used to be there. Come to me in a dream. And it's interesting. Like, I'm listening to the song and I'm like, Ma, you come to me in a dream. You come to me in a dream. She's singing. My mother's singing, Kum zu mir in cholem rishela. I should come to her in a dream. Yes, come to me in a dream. That's the song. She sang it a lot.
Wow, it's so beautiful. Thank you for letting me share that. Before we can, and thank you, Rishi, for all your amazing stories and just lessons that we learned today about your mom. And her neshama should have the highest aliyah. If you could just say her full name just for her neshama.
Thank you. Miriam Bas Dovber. Thank
Miriam
you.
Bas,
Thank you for
Miriam's Bas Dovber was an honor to feature her in our class. We probably can go on for hours and hours to talk about her. But buy her books, really. This is not an ad. This is like, you guys will thank me. It's so rich, like rich with wisdom, and it's just incredible how she shared her stories. We're gonna do a roll call now. And Rishi, I hope maybe, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I hope maybe you'd come back in the future and share a little bit more about the Nishe Chabad newsletter, like stories, like how you put it together of being an editor. And it's actually interesting because you said your namesake would edit pictures, and you kind of you follow her footsteps because you also edit the newsletter. You're like full, like we were in touch. You're full on. I mean, it was intimidating. I'm like, how am I doing? And you're like, you're okay. So yeah, we'd love to have you back if you would
Thank you.
agree. It would be such a treat. So I hope you'll consider it. And it was really nice to get to know you. I need to thank your sister. I didn't thank her in the beginning, but that's how this class came about. Where we were talking and I asked her, like, she gifted me actually this book, which was so nice of her. She sent it with my husband.
My sister Eti Gorevich?
Yeah, Eti Grevich. Why I Didn't Cry When Comrade Stalin Died. And I was so thankful. It was so sweet of her to send me a book. And I read it like within days, and I thanked her and I'm like, would you speak? She's like, get my sister to do it. You know how it is. Like,
I sure do.
you're that sister.
Eti always gets me into trouble like that. Thanks, Ed.
But Eti's amazing on her own. Like, she has her own, like, she has an incredible Judaica store could you tell us where you guys should check it out. She sells stuff.
Judaica of Great Neck. It's in Great Neck.
Okay, it's in Great Neck, and she has an Instagram page. I believe it's Judaica of Great Neck, and she posts amazing things. Like, she's more, I would say, on the quiet side, but on her page, she brings it to life, and she has such great gifts, such great prices, and she does a lot of shluchas there. Like, a lot of people come in, and I told her, you probably have the best stories, so we're working on to get her on this class.
definitely. Do that.
But she's really incredible. So thank you to your wonderful sister Etty for having you join us tonight, because she really gets the credit. Before we share the video, I want to give a big shout out.
No to Etty, it's a problem.
Sorry?
I can't say no to Etty, it's a problem. All my life, this is the problem. She was my little cute little baby sister, 7 years younger than me, and I never could say no to her then, and I still can't.
She's still cute.
I know.
Well, you guys are lucky. Nothing like sisters. But I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to Hashem for allowing me to do this class, giving me the opportunity, and the Rebbe, because I made him my partner, and that's why it's incredible. I want to say thank you to my husband. He really helps me with the class. He does a lot of things behind the scenes, and I'm so grateful to him. And he's busy, but he makes time for this class. He puts it up on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I put it in the chat box. It's under Chaim Inc. I kept it like easy so you guys will remember my that was my nickname growing up. My friends called me Chaim Inc. And yeah, I want to say thank you to my husband. I'm so grateful to him. I want to say thank you to all the ambassadors on this class. I want to say thank you to all the viewers of this class. And really, it's really an honor to do this. And each week I get guided, and this was such a great opportunity to have you. It's also our 3rd year anniversary this week for our class. How do I know that? Because it is my birthday this week, and every year on my birthday, it's 3 years. We actually, 4 years ago is when this came about. A birthday is a time to make a hachlata, a good deed, to take on something new. And we had a farbrengen in Brooklyn Heights, where I was living at the time. And Shane D. Jacobson came on. I want to say thank you to Shane D. Jacobson for being my mentor for this class. Who knew that how it would come about, but she came and spoke to the ladies in Brooklyn Heights. It was incredible. 44 ladies showed up. It was amazing. And it was just a magical night. And when you do for others, you're really doing for yourself. My grandmother used to say, what you do for yourself. And it was just magical. And the next year I was like, I have to continue this, but COVID hit, and we did it on Zoom. No intention of continuing it. For this to happen like this. And then I had an idea to do a 4-week series, and then another 4-week series, and had some people help me bring it to life. And it was just incredible to see it evolve. And then one day it just went viral. It wasn't my intention. So that's why we're here today. And the other day I was telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, it's a lot of work. Maybe I should take a little break. And she goes, it's too late to take a break, Kaya. But I'm very grateful that I get this opportunity, and it's awesome. And if I bring a little later about my birthday, in honor of my birthday, it will be very cool. So stay on. I'm going to turn off the screen. Tonight we had 70 ladies join live, which is a pretty big number. 70, sometimes we come down in this world just to do a favor for another 70 to 80 years. We hit a nice number in honor of your mom. A lot of ladies viewed it. A lot of ladies listened to it after. So I'm just going to do a roll call, because it's nice for the viewers and for the speaker and for myself to see how far the class goes. So tonight we had Bell Harbor, and you could post in the chat box now. I'll give a little shout out if you post it, you didn't yet, where you're from. We had Bell Harbor, Florida. We have Brooklyn Heights. We have Mexico, Florida, Crown Heights, Glendale, Glendale, California, Queens, North Carolina, Kansas, Michigan, Far Rockaway, Sheepside Bay, Delray Beach, Southfield, Michigan. We have the UK on tonight. Wow. Pretty amazing. We also have Australia join a lot weekly. We have Israel. Welcome. So exciting. And then we have Kingston, PA. Welcome. So happy that you're here. And it's just incredible to see how far this class goes. I just hope that you didn't just take this as like an hour of getting good stories. I hope you really apply these stories in your own life, and please do extra mitzvos for our hostages. Continue to say Tehillim. We also have New Jersey on tonight and Baltimore. But thank you for posting it. And yeah, let's do one more good deed to bring Mashiach closer. So Rishe can show all her newsletters to the Rebbe, all the amazing work that she did, and also to your mom, because now you have a lot to show her. I'm sure you're going to show her a lot of things that you're doing in her honor. And you're going to meet your grandmother very soon one day, and your great grandparents, and they watch over you. There's no doubt, because there's a whole life up there that we don't see. Not everything are we destined to see, but it's there, and they're it really makes their neshamas, like right now, your grandmother is very happy that you did this in her honor. I know it and I feel it. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to honor your mom tonight. So special. We always like,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It was amazing. And thanks for joining. I think this is one of your first classes. So thank you for being here. So special. We always like to share a Rebbe video. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I love the Rebbe since I'm a little girl. And I like to bring the Rebbe to the people because I like what you love, you should share with others. So I'm going to ask, we're gonna share a short video of the Rebbe welcoming people from the Soviet Union at a Lag BaOmer parade, and he gave over a beautiful message. So we're going to watch it now together.
Специальное указание и послание от этого собрания и от дня от Лагбеймер для всех тех, которые находятся здесь и приехали из ЮССР, из России или из стран, которые находятся в таком положении, что они видели и видят воочию, как Бог их сохранил, несмотря на то, что они выросли в режиме, который уже более
Give us one moment while we pull it up. Okay. Okay, we're gonna pull up the screen in one moment again, the video. Give us 1 second. So we're gonna take a moment just to reflect on this class, and you can write in the chat box at this time, like what you learned about this class, what you took from this class, so Rishe can see it. I will send it all over to her.
здесь или в других странах, в которых происходят тоже парады, связанные с Лагбеймер, с общинным Бейхоли, что это показывает силу еврейства и силу еврейского народа, что несмотря ни на какой голос, несмотря ни на какой режим, они в силах, если только они решили с полной силой вешомру дерех Хашем идти по пути, указанному Богом в Его священной Торе, через исполнение Его указаний, Его священных мицвей, тогда в конце концов они побеждают все трудности. И это тоже послание и священная миссия каждого специально из тех, которые находятся здесь и прибыли из России или из Румынии или таких стран, показать живой пример, как они не только продолжают жизнь по указаниям Торы, находясь также с этой стороны железного занавеса, но они еще прибавили в этом, чтобы повлиять на все окружение и также передать всем родственникам и всем евреям, которые еще находятся в тех странах, чтобы они, хас вешолым, не потеряли надежду и продолжали держаться со всей силой за священной Торе исполнение ее указаний мицвот. И это обещано Богом, что в конце концов Он их тоже выведет из голоса по указаниям Рашби, что Бхол Моким Шеголу и Исроил Шхино и Моэль, что Бог находится с каждым из них, и Он его оберегает и дает ему силу пережить все эти трудности и также передать всем детям, которые находятся там, что как закон Советской России, гарантированной Советской Конституцией, обещает и предохраняет и указывает всем властям, что отец или мать может, и никто и не смеет им мешать учить со своим сыном и со своей дочерью Тору в полной мере, включая исполнение мицвот в ежедневной жизни, и все те, которые мешают этому, или это милиционер, или высшая власть, действуют против Советской Конституции, и все те, которые говорят иначе и ведут пропаганду, так это полная ложь. Они криминальники и нарушают советские законы, их нужно снять с их постов и посадить на их место таких, которые будут соблюдать советские законы в этом отношении и не только не будут мешать воспитанию согласно духу истинного еврейства и священной Торы и ее мицвот, на них, что будут их охранять и помогать в этом. И это их что больше ускорит, чтобы в близком, в ближайшем будущем, бимхейра биамейну мамош, все мы, включая евреев, которые находятся в тех странах с нами, и включая, как говорилось раньше, что будет настоящее освобождение всех народов мира на основании истинного мира и шолы через то, что каждый будет иметь свою полную свободу в ежедневной жизни.
Wow, so powerful and so relevant to today. And we should get our hostages back immediately, and God should protect them. And He will protect them. And we should just hear miracles from everyone. And we should just wake up to Mashiach, because every day we wake up to sometimes the bad news. We think it's bad news. We know it's bad news where people die, and no one should die anymore. These young boys that are literally protecting us. The Rebbe spoke about them. They called the IDF tzaddikim, literally tzaddikim, risking their lives for us. And Hashem should just protect them, keep protecting them. And we should just hear revealed news, and all the evil should be gone. It's slowly happening. It's times of Mashiach. So good things are coming our way. So thank you again, Rishe, so much for being on. Wait, I'm just going to mute you. Give me a second. We have a lot of people on the screen, so it's hard to find your name, but give me one moment while I ask for you to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted, right?
Yeah, you're unmuted.
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Chai. I appreciate, on behalf of my mother, I feel it was an honor to my mother, and I appreciate that you gave her that.
It was a pleasure and an honor. So thank you, Rishe.
Her book publishing was very important to her. It was like a lifetime goal, and she finally did it, in her 80s. So Baruch Hashem.
I'm so happy she did because it's a gift to us all. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording because we're going to continue with a Farbringen, the power of Farbringen. When I'm just going to say this before I close it, what Malach Machol can't accomplish, we can with a Farbringen, and we're going to have one, and we're Farbringing for the hostages to come home and for the safety of everyone around the world and for Mashiach to come. So amen to that. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you for joining, everyone.